The Galactic Council Hall on Vorlith Prime was one of the largest structures in the known galaxy. Built from white crystal and silver alloy, it stretched high above the city clouds shining under 3 suns. Inside, thousands of alien representatives sat in tiered circles around a glowing center table. The air was filled with the soft hum of translators, lights and quiet whispers. It was the day everyone had waited for, the day the Council would finally decide the fate of humanity. Humans were the youngest spacefaring species but had already changed the balance of power. In less than 2 centuries, they had colonized more worlds than most empires could in 1,000 years. They had fought wars, survived plagues, and kept expanding. Many called them unstoppable. Others called them dangerous. At the center of the chamber stood Ambassador Mira Holt, the only human in the room. She wore a simple black uniform with the United Terran emblem on her shoulder. Her expression was calm, almost emotionless, but her eyes carried the quiet sharpness of someone who had seen far too many battles. Across from her stood High Speaker Zalkrin, a tall, silver-scaled being from the Varan Dominion. His species had once ruled half the galaxy before humans appeared. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Ambassador Holt," he began, his tone cold, "we gathered today because your kind has become a problem. Wherever humanity goes, conflict follows. You expand into restricted systems. You violate territorial boundaries. You spread chaos." The words drew murmurs of agreement from many corners of the hall. Creatures of every shape, furred, scaled, mechanical, and nodded in approval. Mira did not respond. She waited. Another delegate, this one insectoid, clicked its mandibles. Humans bring instability. They cannot be reasoned with. They are predators pretending to be civilized. Finally, Mira spoke. Her voice was calm and clear. "Predators?" she said quietly. "You use that word like it's an insult." The room fell silent for a moment. Her eyes moved across the crowd. "Humans are not predators by choice. We are survivors. On our homeworld, everything tried to kill us, and the climate, the beasts, even the diseases. We adapted. We learned. We endured," Zalkrin hissed softly. "That may be true, but survival is not justification for aggression. We will discuss measures to limit your colonization rights." Mira folded her hands behind her back. "Understood." Her tone was polite, but her eyes remained hard. For hours, the council debated. Some species argued for peace, others for control. The humans' growing influence frightened them. They could not understand how a small, fragile mammal species could advance so quickly or fight so fiercely. Finally, a chime rang through the hall, an incoming transmission. The room dimmed as a holographic feed appeared above the table. The image showed Erebus 4, a human border colony at the edge of known space. Smoke and fire filled the screen. Buildings burned. People ran. Alien creatures swarmed through the streets, tall, armored, insect-like monsters tearing everything apart. The Dravik swarm had come. Panic spread across the council chamber. The Dravik were not new to them. They were a hive species, brutal and unstoppable. The council had spent centuries keeping them confined to uninhabited systems. But now they had broken through. A council aide read the emergency report. Erebus 4 under full attack. Civilian evacuation impossible. Human military forces not yet present. Planetary defense grid failing. Several alien delegates looked toward Mira, expecting her to plead for help. But she stood perfectly still, her face pale but composed. Zalkrin turned to her. "Ambassador Holt, the Council will send observation drones and peacekeeping vessels. Humanity is ordered to stand down. We will handle this situation." Mira's expression didn't change. "You will handle it?" she repeated softly. "Yes," said another counselor. "We cannot risk uncontrolled retaliation from your military. Your species has proven impulsive." There was a long silence. Then Mira gave a single nod. "Understood." She turned off her communicator and walked away from the central platform. The council returned to debate. Some argued they should evacuate survivors. Others believed the loss of one colony was acceptable. No one realized that in that moment, Mira had already sent a coded message through her wrist console. A silent, encrypted signal to Earth. Message priority, Omega Red. Meaning, engage without approval. Hours later, the observation feeds began transmitting live footage from Erebus 4. The planet was dying. The Dravik swarm descended like locusts, burning forests and cities. The ground was littered with corpses. Alien drones recorded everything, broadcasting the chaos straight to the council chamber. "This is tragic," murmured a soft-voiced aquatic species. "But humans brought this on themselves. They expanded too far." "Yes," another agreed. "A lesson in restraint." But then the lights in the council hall flickered. The feed suddenly shifted, static for a few seconds. And then new images appeared. A massive human warship had entered Erebus orbit. Its hull bore the markings of the 3rd Terran Expeditionary Fleet, the most feared force in the human navy. Someone shouted, "They ignored the order! They entered without permission." Zalkrin slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Impossible. They wouldn't dare defy the council." But the feed showed otherwise. One by one, dozens of human ships appeared, dropping out of faster-than-light travel like ghosts emerging from darkness. Their engines glowed faint blue. No transmissions, no hails, no warnings. They moved in eerie silence. A council technician reported, "They are not responding to communications. All channels are closed." "What are they doing?" another delegate asked. Mira's voice broke the silence. She had returned to her seat. "They're getting ready." "For what?" "For the hunt," she said quietly. Down on Erebus 4, human troops deployed in small, coordinated teams. They did not charge. They did not shout. They moved like shadows through the burning ruins. Drones followed them, showing soldiers marking targets, setting ambushes, and moving civilians to safe zones with calm efficiency. The Dravik swarm didn't understand what was happening. They were used to chaos, to panic, but humans were silent. Their movements were cold, calculated. Every shot was precise. Every kill deliberate. Council members leaned closer to the hologram, fascinated and horrified at the same time. A Dravik commander, visible on a captured comm feed, laughed at the small number of human ships. "You think you can stand against the swarm? We are infinite." Moments later, the commander's ship exploded. The entire Dravik fleet began to vanish from sensors one by one. A stunned council aide reported, "Their fleet is disappearing. No human transmissions, no energy spikes. They're just gone." "What kind of weapons are they using?" someone whispered. Mira didn't answer. Her eyes stayed fixed on the glowing screen, watching in silence. Hours passed. The battle turned completely. Human ships weaved through the Dravik formation like hunters stalking prey. Their tactics made no sense to the council. No predictable formation, no retreat pattern. They fought like a living organism guided by instinct, not command. Whenever a Dravik ship tried to retreat, human vessels were already waiting. Whenever they regrouped, orbital strikes hit them before they could form a line. By the end of the day, the sky over Erebus 4 cleared. Fires still burned, but no Dravik ship remained in orbit. The observation drones captured the last scene. Human marines walking through the ruins, carrying survivors on their backs. Not one spoke. Not one celebrated. They simply worked in silence. In the council chamber, the silence was thick. The once arrogant delegates now stared at the screens, unable to speak. The same aliens who had laughed at Mira's warnings now avoided her eyes. Finally, one of them whispered, "They didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like something else." Mira looked up, her face unreadable. "You called us dangerous," she said softly.
"You were right."
"But you don't understand why." She turned off the display and stood. "You wanted to handle it yourselves. Next time, maybe don't get in our way." Without another word, she walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a room full of silent, shaken species, each one realizing that the humans they feared were far more than warriors. They were predators built by a world that had never given them mercy. The council chamber on Vorlith Prime had never been so quiet. Hours had passed since the destruction of the Dravik fleet over Erebus Thor, yet no one dared to speak. Holographic screens still floated above the circular hall, replaying scenes of human warships tearing through enemy lines like predators cutting through prey. For most species in the galaxy, war was a matter of numbers, shields, and treaties. But what they had just seen from humanity was something else, something ancient, instinctive, and terrifyingly effective. At last, High Speaker Zalkrin broke the silence. His silver scales dimmed with stress. "This cannot be tolerated," he hissed. Humanity defied a direct council order. They entered restricted conflict without approval. This is aggression. A nervous insectoid delegate buzzed in agreement. If they are allowed to act freely, the balance of the galaxy will collapse. But others were not so sure. A four-eyed being from the Sorial Union tapped its long fingers. You saw how they fought. The Dravik swarm would have reached our borders next. Humanity stopped them. Zalkrin slammed his clawed hand down. Stopped them? They annihilated them. Entire fleets gone. Entire nests destroyed. You call that stopping? The hall filled with heated voices. The argument went on until a soft chime cut through the noise. A transmission request appeared. It was Admiral Cale Doran, commander of the human 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. The room dimmed as a tall, broad-shouldered human appeared in holographic form. His face was calm but hard, like a man who had long ago made peace with death. His uniform bore battle scars and his tone carried the weight of command. This is Admiral Doran, he said. Erebus 4 has been secured. Civilian losses 73%. Enemy forces neutralized, Zalkrin glared. Admiral Doran, by whose authority did you enter Erebus space? The Council. The Council? Doran interrupted, his voice cold. The Council watched while civilians burned. We acted because waiting meant extinction. You disobeyed. We survived, Doran said simply. His calmness made many alien delegates uneasy. There was no pride in his tone, no joy in victory. Just quiet certainty, he continued. The Dravik weren't attacking randomly. Their fleet was guided. Someone helped them bypass the containment barrier. Murmurs spread across the room. Zalkrin looked startled. You are accusing the Council of assisting them? I'm stating facts, Doran said. The swarm didn't get through by accident. They were led. The human admiral paused, his eyes sweeping across the delegates. And if that's true, humanity will find who's responsible. Then the feed ended. No farewell, no signal delay. Just gone. The council chamber erupted again. He threatened us, someone shouted. He accused the council. Arrogant primitives. But beneath the anger, fear spread like cold smoke. Everyone had seen what those primitives could do. Mira Holt stood silently watching the chaos. She didn't try to defend Doran, she didn't need to. The images from Erebus 4 spoke louder than any argument. Hours later, deep in orbit over Erebus 4, the human fleet floated in silence. The planet below was scarred, oceans blackened, cities destroyed. Yet amidst the smoke, rescue beacons blinked like tiny stars. Admiral Doran stood on the bridge of his flagship, the TNS Resolute. Around him, officers worked quietly, checking reports and coordinating relief. Status of the surface? He asked. Evacuations are underway, sir, replied Lieutenant Voss. We've secured nearly 30,000 survivors. Medical ships are en route, Doran nodded. And the Dravik? Dead, sir. Or fleeing. But our sensors picked up strange transmissions before they fell. Coded bursts directed away from Dravik space. He narrowed his eyes. Someone's watching. Council probes, maybe? Maybe, Doran said softly. Or maybe something worse. He turned to his communications officer. Send word to Earth. Tell them to activate Protocol Horizon. The officer froze. Sir, that's a full mobilization order. The council already made their choice, Doran interrupted. Now we make ours. Back on Vorlith Prime, the council gathered again for an emergency session. Alien leaders shouted, argued, and accused one another. Many wanted to sanction humanity. Some wanted to disarm them. A few, the wiser ones, suggested leaving them alone. Then the next set of feeds arrived. Drones had been tracking human movements beyond Erebus 4. The footage showed something that made the entire chamber fall silent once more. Human fleets were splitting apart. Instead of regrouping, they vanished into different systems. Small, coordinated task forces diving into Dravik territory. What are they doing? Asked a trembling aquatic delegate. They're invading, Zalkrin said in disbelief. They're not defending anymore. They're going on the offensive. The screen showed the impossible. Human warships striking deep behind enemy lines, hitting supply worlds, hive stations, and communication relays. Every attack was planned with surgical precision. But what shocked the council most was the silence. The humans didn't broadcast demands, warnings, or victory messages. No speeches. No propaganda. They struck, vanished, and left behind nothing but wreckage. 3 days passed. In that short time, the Dravik swarm, a species that had terrified half the galaxy for centuries, lost 1/3 of its empire. Reports flooded in. Entire hive planets sterilized. Human fleet using stealth tactics unknown to the Council. Dravik, retreating from all contested zones. The Council could hardly believe it. A reptilian delegate whispered, "They move like shadows." It's like the humans knew the swarm's weaknesses before the battle even started. Mira finally spoke. They didn't know. They learned. Zalkrin turned to her angrily. "You call this learning? They are exterminating a species." Mira's eyes were tired but firm. "You didn't see what the Dravik did on Erebus 4. You didn't smell the burned bodies or hear the screams. Humanity isn't destroying them out of hate. We're making sure it never happens again." The hall went silent again. Later that night, in her private quarters, Mira received a secure transmission. It was Doran. His holographic image flickered faintly, his face drawn from exhaustion. "Ambassador," he said, "we've taken 8 systems. The swarm is collapsing faster than predicted, but there's something wrong. What is it? We captured one of their command drones. It carried Council encryption codes. Someone fed them coordinates to Erebus 4. Mira's breath caught. "You're certain?" "Positive. And the data matches transmissions from Vorlith Prime." Her expression hardened. That means this wasn't an accident," Doran said. "Someone in the Council wanted humanity destroyed, and now they're about to see what happens when you try to kill a Death World species." By the next morning, chaos had reached every corner of the Council. News networks replayed human victories. Civilian worlds cheered. Even species once hostile to Earth started requesting human alliances, but not everyone was celebrating. In hidden corners of the chamber, the ones who had secretly aided the Dravik panicked. Their plan had failed. Humanity had not been wiped out. It had awakened. Zalkrin summoned Mira to a private meeting. The silver-scaled leader stood near the observation window, looking out over the endless city lights. "Ambassador Holt," he began carefully, "human actions have become concerning. Your fleets act without oversight. You risk destabilizing the entire galactic order." Mira crossed her arms. "Order?" she repeated. "You call silence and fear order?" Zalkrin turned sharply. "Do not test me. I speak for half the Council. And I speak for billions of humans who buried their children yesterday." Mira said quietly, "If you want us to stop, tell me who gave the swarm our colony coordinates." Zalkrin froze, his eyes flashing. "You have no proof." "Not yet," Mira said. "But Admiral Doran will find it. And when he does, the galaxy will learn the truth." She stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "You thought humanity was weak because we smiled and talked peace. But you never understood us. We don't start wars. We finish them." Zalkrin's claws twitched, but he said nothing as she walked out. Far across the stars, Admiral Doran's fleet continued its silent campaign. Human ships drifted like phantoms through nebulae and asteroid fields. They struck Dravik worlds, freed captured colonies, and destroyed hive queens before they could respawn. Dravik soldiers began to whisper among themselves. "The humans come without sound. They see us before we see them. They kill us before we scream." For a species that once hunted others without fear, it was a nightmare come to life. Back in the Council chamber, panic finally replaced arrogance. Delegates shouted for negotiations, truces, or direct intervention, but it was too late. Mira stood once again in the center of the hall as the chaos unfolded. Her voice was calm, steady, and colder than before. "You wanted to watch," she said. "You wanted to study the humans, to see how dangerous we could be. Well, keep watching. You haven't seen the worst of it yet." A murmur of fear swept through the room. Even Zalkrin could not meet her eyes. For the first time, the Galactic Council, a body that had ruled peacefully for centuries, realized something terrifying. The humans weren't just another race. They were something else entirely. Something older. Something the galaxy had not seen since the dawn of war itself. Predators who smiled, until it was time to hunt. The stars above Erebus 4 were calm now, but the calm was deceptive. The human fleet, scattered across multiple systems, moved like shadows, invisible until they struck. To the Council, who watched every transmission, what unfolded next was beyond comprehension. The Dravik swarm had been powerful, brutal, and relentless. Entire planets had fallen under their control. Entire civilizations had been wiped out at their command. But humans were different. They didn't just fight. They hunted, Council delegates gathered once more in the Grand Hall on Vorlith Prime. This time there was no shouting. There was no debate. Only silence, thick, tense, and unbroken. Screens displayed the live feeds from the human fleet. Tiny human vessels moved in coordinated strikes against Dravic colonies, but it wasn't just the fleet. On the ground, human marines were visible, moving in squads so small yet so effective that even the most seasoned alien military leaders couldn't predict their actions. One of the alien delegates, a long-limbed creature with reflective eyes, whispered to its neighbor, "They aren't fighting like soldiers, they're thinking like predators." The other shook its head in disbelief. "Predators?" "Yes," the first replied. "Organized, silent, lethal predators." On Erebus 4, the human marines moved like ghosts. Smoke still rose from burned cities, but their focus was on the remaining Dravic clusters. The aliens didn't hear them coming. They didn't see them. And before they could react, human squads struck with precision. Every kill, every movement was calculated. No emotion, no noise, just efficiency. Captain Rhea Voss, leading a squad through the ruins of a partially destroyed city, glanced at her holographic map. "3 clusters left," she whispered. Her squad nodded. They moved silently, slipping through shadows, avoiding patrols, cutting communication lines. A Dravic squad emerged, sensing something. They opened fire. Seconds later, every Dravic soldier was down. Not a single human was lost. Voss checked her scanner. "All clear. Continue to extraction points." In orbit, Admiral Cale Doran monitored the fleet's progress. His expression was calm, yet his mind was alert. The humans weren't fighting just to win. They were fighting to erase fear itself. "Lieutenant, how many survivors in the last operation?" Doran asked. 32,000, replied the officer. "And no civilian casualties during extraction." "Good," Doran said. "We do this right. The swarm shouldn't just lose. They need to understand that humans don't give mercy. But we protect those under our care." A council drone transmitted part of the feed to Vorlith Prime. Delegates gasped as alien civilians were shown being carried from burning cities, unharmed while Dravic forces fell in perfect silence around them. An aquatic delegate murmured, "They aren't just strong, they're intelligent hunters." Every move calculated, every attack precise. Zalkrin's silver scales gleamed in the dim light. "It is unnatural." Meanwhile, deep inside Dravic territory, the swarm's command hives were collapsing. Without their queens and command nodes, the soldiers panicked. But the humans weren't chasing blindly. They anticipated every retreat, every regrouping attempt. In one remote sector, a fleet of Dravic ships tried to flee through an asteroid belt. Sensors picked up human interceptors already lying in wait. Within minutes, the fleet vanished. Not a single ship survived. A Dravic commander hissed over the comms, frustration dripping from its tone. "They see everything. They know where we are before we move." Another responded, "We cannot fight shadows. They are impossible." Back on Vorlith Prime, council delegates stared at the screen, some of them shivering in fear. They began to understand that humans weren't just another species. They were something evolved for survival in the harshest conditions imaginable. Mira Holt finally addressed the council. Her voice was calm, carrying the weight of observation and experience. "They are not fighting to conquer," she said. "They are not fighting to destroy for pleasure. They are fighting because the universe gave them no other choice. Every instinct, every tactic, every decision, it is designed for survival. And when humans are cornered, they become predators beyond reckoning." Zalkrin's claws tapped the floor nervously. "Predators, you mean? They fight like apex hunters?" "Yes," Mira said simply. "And today you're all witnessing what happens when the apex predator awakens fully." The hall went silent again. Even the oldest delegates, those who had survived centuries of wars, felt a cold unease settle in their hearts. The next day, the feeds showed a human fleet moving deeper into Dravic territory. Small strike teams entered hive planets and liberated captured humans and allied species. The Dravic soldiers did not resist, they fled. But wherever they went, they were hunted. Every interception was methodical. Every corner turned, every escape route blocked. It was as if the humans knew the swarm's behavior before it even began. On one planet, a small Dravic colony attempted to regroup, constructing weapons and shields. Human squads arrived silently in the night. Within hours, the colony was dismantled. The aliens were captured, not killed, and the planet was left as a warning. Structures intact, but soldiers neutralized. The council watched in disbelief. "They don't just destroy," one delegate whispered. "They teach fear," another nodded slowly. "And yet, they protect the innocent." Mira's voice echoed through the chamber once more. "Humans do not kill for pleasure. We hunt because we must, but we value life when it belongs to those we protect. That is what makes us unpredictable. That is what makes us dangerous." Across multiple star systems, the Dravik swarm began to break apart. Their soldiers, once ruthless and fearless, now whispered rumors of ghosts in the dark, of humans who struck before they could even think. Panic spread faster than their armies could recover. Even the council could see it. Their carefully constructed empire of fear was collapsing. And humans were not just winning battles. They were destroying the Dravik will to fight. A young Sorial officer murmured to her superior, "It's psychological. They don't just fight. They make the enemy afraid of life itself." "Yes," the elder replied. "We may have underestimated them. Catastrophically." On Erebus 4, Captain Rhea Voss paused for a moment atop a destroyed building, watching survivors being escorted to safe zones. Her face was tired, streaked with soot, but her eyes burned with focus. Lieutenant Caro, her second-in-command, spoke quietly. "Do you think they'll ever fight back?" Voss shook her head. "Not while we're hunting them. Not while we're awake." She glanced at her squad. "Remember this. Fear is a weapon, and humans are its master." The alien civilians being escorted past the building stared in awe. They didn't understand the tactics, the strategy, or the planning. But they understood one thing: humans were different. They were no ordinary species. And for the first time, some of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful species began to realize that humanity's predator mode was not just a skill. It was a legacy of survival, honed over millennia on a death world that gave nothing freely. Back at the council, Zalkrin called an emergency session. He tried to rally support for intervention, for sanctions, for containment, but even his allies hesitated. The live feeds from the human fleet were undeniable. "They do not fight like soldiers," a Varan delegate admitted, trembling. "They fight like predators. They plan, they adapt, they strike where it hurts most, and they protect what they must." Mira stood silently, observing the council's reactions. She said nothing, letting the images speak. In that silence, a realization dawned on many. Humanity was no longer a species to control or intimidate. Humanity had awakened, and the predator within had just begun its hunt. The final feed of the day showed the humans' greatest act of strategy. A massive Dravik hive ship attempted to escape through a narrow wormhole. Sensors predicted a 95% chance of success. Human interceptors, invisible on scans, were already in position on the far side. The moment the hive ship entered the wormhole, the interceptor struck. In seconds, the vessel was destroyed. No one had heard a warning. No one had seen them arrive. Only the aftermath remained. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. One by one, delegates realized a terrible truth. Humans did not merely react. They anticipated. They hunted. They erased fear from their prey, and in doing so, left a clear message to the rest of the galaxy. Mira Holt rose from her seat and spoke, her voice low but cutting through the silence like a blade. "You wanted to see what humans could do. You are now witnessing it. This is only the beginning." Even Zalkrin, proud and arrogant, could not look her in the eyes because the humans were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to awaken the predator that had always lived within them. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with tension thicker than molten metal. The feeds from Erebus 4 and multiple Dravik colonies had left the delegates pale and silent. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most powerful species were genuinely afraid, and they did not even know what to fear. Screens displayed humans moving in perfect synchronization across the stars. The Dravik swarm, once a terror that spread like wildfire, was now retreating in disarray. Entire fleets had vanished without a trace, and communication networks, once impenetrable, were silent. A silver-scaled Varan delegate, trembling, whispered, They are ghosts." Zalkrin's claws drummed nervously on the polished floor. "No, not ghosts. They are predators, apex predators, and we let them awaken." On Erebus 4, the human fleet hovered quietly above the planet. Below, human marines moved through the ruins in squads no larger than 10. Their weapons were silent, their movements precise. Fires still burned, but every living creature that could be saved had been rescued. Captain Rhea Voss surveyed the city from a rooftop. Her squad had just finished clearing the last Dravik patrols in the area. She wiped soot from her uniform and activated a holocommunicator. "Admiral Doran," she said, voice steady despite exhaustion. "All local threats neutralized. Civilians evacuated to secure zones. No human casualties." "Good," Doran replied, his holographic form shimmering above her. "We move to the next cluster. Remember, fear is a weapon. They must understand it before we finish." Voss nodded, understanding the weight of the command. To the Dravik, the humans had become an enigma, impossible to predict, impossible to fight, and utterly unstoppable. Across the galaxy, the Council watched in stunned silence as human forces struck again and again. Hive planets were captured with minimal destruction. Alien civilians were rescued while Dravik soldiers fell silently. Entire fleets disappeared before they could even send distress signals. An aquatic delegate murmured, "They don't just fight, they teach fear. They fight to make the enemy afraid to live." Another delegate, a thin, multi-limbed creature, added, "And yet, they protect life. They are monsters who save." The chamber went quiet. Even Zalkren could not form words. Deep inside Dravik space, chaos reigned. Soldiers were deserting their posts. Hive leaders were panicked. The swarm's usual tactics were meaningless against humans who anticipated every move. On a Dravik command station, a young officer screamed over the comms, "We cannot escape them. Every path is blocked. They are everywhere." A senior commander hissed, "They must be gods." But the humans did not strike recklessly. Each attack was calculated. Every assault was surgical. Ships were intercepted only when it mattered most. Cities were liberated without collateral damage. Every human action sent a clear message. The Predator does not forgive, but it protects. Back on Vorlith Prime, Mira Holt stood at the center of the council chamber. Delegates turned to her, hoping for explanation, clarity, or even excuses. "They think they can control us," she said softly, voice calm but firm. "They think they can manipulate, restrain, or threaten us." They were wrong. Humans do not respond to fear. We are built for it. We survive it, and when cornered, we awaken fully. Zalkren hissed, struggling to contain his panic. You allowed this?" "I did not allow it," Mira said. "You made it necessary. Humanity was pushed to the edge. You forced the Predator awake. Now you all see the consequences." The Council shivered. Even species that prided themselves on centuries of wisdom realized the truth. Humans were not just a species. They were a force of nature, apex predators in human form. Meanwhile, Admiral Doran's fleet moved toward the Dravik Heart System, the largest hive cluster remaining. Sensors detected the enemy massing for a final desperate strike. Hundreds of ships, tens of thousands of Dravik soldiers. The humans did not panic. They did not hesitate. Each squad, each vessel, each strike team moved like a living organism. Small teams infiltrated orbital stations, disabled weapons, and blocked escape routes. On the planet below, human marines advanced with surgical precision. Civilians were moved to safety. Dravik soldiers were captured, neutralized, or eliminated silently. Not a single misstep occurred. A junior officer whispered to Doran, "Sir, they're panicking." "They're running from us." Doran's eyes narrowed. "Good, let them. Fear is part of the hunt, but we finish only when the job is complete." The Dravik Hive fleet tried one last maneuver, a desperate rush through a nebula, hoping to escape detection. But human sensors, trained by years of survival on death worlds, tracked every move. Interceptors waited silently. The moment the Dravik emerged, they were met with precision strikes. Ships were destroyed in seconds, leaving no survivors. On Vorlith Prime, council members watched the destruction unfold in stunned horror. One delegate whispered, "Entire fleets gone, and not a single human lost." Zalkren's voice trembled. "It is impossible. They defy every rule of war we know. They are not just fighting. They are predators of the highest order." Mira Holt said nothing. She only watched, calm and composed, as centuries of arrogance crumbled around her. Later, the human fleet regrouped above the Dravik homeworld. The final assault was planned with meticulous care. Every team knew their role. Every target was marked. The Dravik could sense the humans moving. but they could not predict them. They could not hide. They could not resist. Captain Voss addressed her squad before the assault. "This is the last fight," she said quietly. "Do not hesitate. Protect the innocent. Hunt the predators who prey on them. When this is done, the galaxy will remember what humans are capable of." Her squad nodded, understanding the weight of their task. The battle began. The Dravik launched thousands of ships, but human interceptors moved like shadows. Planetary defenses were disabled silently. Ground forces infiltrated key hives. Dravik soldiers never saw them coming. Within hours, the heart system was under complete human control. Dravik forces were destroyed, captured, or fleeing. Communication hubs were silenced. Entire command structures collapsed. Council drones transmitted the live feed. Delegates stared, pale and silent. A young Varan officer whispered, "They don't just fight. They erase the will to resist." An elder delegate shook its head. "They are gods among mortals." After the battle, human forces moved swiftly to stabilize liberated worlds. Civilians were cared for. Infrastructure was rebuilt. Dravik soldiers who surrendered were held in humane captivity, not executed. Admiral Doran reported to Miraholt, voice calm. "Operation complete. Civilian losses minimal. Enemy neutralized. Planet secure." Mira nodded. "Good. Begin recovery protocols. Ensure the survivors understand that humans do not seek vengeance. We protect, we survive, and we end threats before they return." Doran's eyes softened slightly. Understood. The Predator mode, fully awakened. Back on Vorlith Prime, the council chamber was silent. The galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented. Humans had not merely fought, they had mastered the hunt. They had erased fear in themselves while instilling terror in the enemy. Zalkrin's claws shook. They are not just a species, they are something else." Mira's eyes scanned the chamber. "You wanted to see humanity at its worst. You are witnessing it. But remember, the Predator awakens only when threatened. We do not hunt for conquest. We hunt for survival. And when the galaxy tests us, you will see the full measure of what humans are capable of." A murmur of fear ran through the delegates. Some hid it, others did not. But all understood the truth. Humanity had become a force the galaxy could not ignore. The Galactic Council chamber on Vorlith Prime had never been so silent. Screens floated above the central platform, replaying human operations across the stars. The feeds showed nothing but efficiency, precision, and terrifying power. Entire Dravik fleets had vanished. Hive worlds were neutralized. Civilians were rescued, and humans moved like shadows, predators in human skin. For the first time, even the most arrogant species of the galaxy were afraid. And they had reason to be. High Speaker Zalkrin's claws tapped nervously on the polished floor. His silver scales gleamed dimly under the chamber lights. "Ambassador Holt," he said, voice trembling. You cannot deny it. Your species has evolved into something unnatural." Mira Holt remained calm. Her eyes swept across the room. "I do not deny it," she said softly. "Humans are not like other species. We were forged on worlds that tried to kill us at every step. We survived. We adapted. And when we are cornered, we awaken fully." Across the chamber, delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered. Some stared in disbelief. A few tried to hide their fear. None succeeded. Weeks had passed since the final human strike on the Dravik heart system. The swarm had collapsed entirely. Their soldiers had either surrendered, fled, or been neutralized. No empire could rise from the remnants. Not this time. The human fleet had returned to known space, regrouping at secure Terran bases. Civilians and soldiers alike moved in quiet order, unaffected by the praises, fears, or rumors spreading across the galaxy. Admiral Kale Doran stood on the bridge of the TNS Resolute, overlooking the stars. His fleet was intact, though battle-worn. Behind him, Lieutenant Voss reported from the holo console, "Sir, all systems secure. Dravik remnants are retreating. Civilian population stabilized." Doran nodded slowly. "Good. Prepare a full report for Ambassador Holt. The Council must understand the consequences of testing humanity." Voss glanced at him. "Sir, the galaxy is already talking. Some are calling humans gods. Others call us monsters." Doran's lips curved in a small, grim smile. "Let them talk. They'll need to see the difference between perception and reality soon enough." Back on Vorlith Prime, The council prepared for the final meeting with humanity. It was called not as a negotiation, not as a discussion, but as a judgment session. Alien leaders arrived with caution, fear, and in some cases, desperation. Mira Holt entered last. Her black uniform was spotless, her posture straight, her gaze steady. She moved to the center of the chamber, facing hundreds of eyes, some wide with fear, others narrowed in suspicion. "You've come to judge us," Mira said, voice clear and firm. "You've watched humanity fight. You've seen what we can do, and yet you speak of limits, of sanctions, of control." Zalcrin hissed, struggling to contain himself. "Your species. It defies all logic. You strike with precision no one can predict. You erase fleets, destroy command structures, and still preserve civilians. It is impossible." Mira's lips curved slightly. "It is not impossible. It is human. We do not start wars. We finish them. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. And when threatened, we awaken fully." The chamber was silent. Not a whisper, not a murmur. Even the translators seemed to hum faintly, struggling to process the gravity of her words. A holographic recording appeared above the platform. It showed a Dravic command center moments before it was neutralized. The captured Dravic officers were speaking in terrified tones. They do not fight for conquest. They fight because the universe made them this way. We have awakened something that was better left sleeping." The council members watched, pale and silent. Mira said nothing as the recording ended. She let the footage speak for itself. Then she stepped closer. Her voice rang in the chamber like steel under fire. "You called us unpredictable. You called us dangerous. You were right. But remember this, predators awaken fully only when cornered. And now the galaxy has seen what happens when you force them into the hunt." Across the chamber, alien delegates whispered among themselves. Some tried to argue. Some tried to appeal to reason. But the truth was undeniable. Humanity had proven that it could not be controlled, predicted, or ignored. Even Zalcrin, once arrogant and proud, could not meet Mira's eyes. "And what now?" he asked, voice trembling. Mira's gaze swept across the council. Calm, steady, and unyielding, she replied, "Now, you respect us. You recognize that humans are apex predators in every sense. We do not fight to dominate for pleasure. We fight to survive. And when the galaxy tests us, the results are clear." A murmur ran through the chamber. Many delegates felt fear, but others felt relief. Humanity did not kill unnecessarily. Humanity protected. Humanity survived. And in that combination lay terrifying power. Far across space, Admiral Doran's fleet began moving back to Terran-controlled sectors. His ships carried the weight of the galaxy's fear and respect. Each pilot, each Marine, and each engineer knew they were part of something greater than themselves. A species that had awakened its full potential, one that no empire could underestimate. On board the TNS Resolute, Doran received a transmission from Mira. "Report. All systems secure," he replied. "Dravic remnants have either fled or surrendered. Civilian populations are stabilized. Humanity's predator mode has fully awakened." Mira's face appeared holographically. Her expression was calm, almost serene. "Good. Prepare the fleet for diplomatic reception. The galaxy must know strength tempered with responsibility." Doran nodded. "Understood." Days later, the council convened again. This time the session was less about judgment and more about acknowledgement. The alien delegates, even those who had plotted against humanity, had no choice but to recognize what they had seen. A Varan elder stood. "We misjudged your species. You are beyond what we imagined. We fear what you can do, but we cannot deny your achievements. Humanity has earned its sovereignty." A chorus of agreement followed. Some species bowed slightly in respect. Others merely nodded, their fear barely hidden. Mira Holt stepped forward. Her voice was calm, firm, and unwavering. "Humanity does not seek war. Humanity seeks survival. We protect what is ours and eliminate threats before they return. Remember this, Council. Humanity is not a species to test lightly. We awaken fully when cornered. And the predator within us is relentless." Zalcrin exhaled, his pride shattered. "Then, humanity shall have its way, but the galaxy will remember this day." Mira's eyes glimmered. "We will be remembered. Not for destruction, but for survival, for the protection of life, and for the consequences of awakening the predator." The legend spread across the stars. Every species that had witnessed the Dravic collapse understood the new reality. Humans were apex predators. A species that fought not for conquest but for survival. A species that could inspire fear and respect in equal measure. Even the Dravik survivors whispered the story to their kind. They do not fight for power. They fight because the universe made them what they are. We awoke something that was never meant to be challenged. The galaxy listened, and it feared. Back on Earth, Mira watched the news feeds of liberated colonies. Children were returning to school, civilians rebuilding homes, and human marines quietly walking away from the battlefield. Not a single celebration, not a single boast. Humanity had survived. Humanity had protected. Humanity had awakened fully. She turned to a council aide. Remember this. The galaxy thinks it understands humans. It does not. Not yet. A soft chime announced incoming transmissions from the human fleet. Thousands of ships returning home. Humanity was not done. It never was, because the Predator had awakened.